Soulframe is about to change, and I don't just mean new weapons or fables. Fundamental game systems are getting reworked. So when is this going to happen and what can we expect? Here's what we know so far. Ever since DE returned from their winter break, Steve has been chatting about Soulframe during the Warframe Devshorts. Most of the information I'll be sharing in this video comes from those streams, so I'll link the VODs below if you want to watch them yourself. Soulframe's next dev stream will happen on January 30th, probably at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, although at time of recording we don't have an official announcement yet. This is also when DE had hoped to release Preludes 13, although with all the huge changes they're working on, it sounds like it might not be ready in time. If it's not out by then, hopefully it'll drop soon after. So, what's going to be in the update? For starters, there's the new faces and hairstyles that we'd hoped would arrive as a hotfix in P12. These are definitely going to be part of P13, and we'll most likely be able to select them through replaying the War Songs fable in our journal. More fables will be replayable in P13, possibly all of them. Steve said we'd be getting
quest replays,
but did not clarify whether that meant all fables or only certain ones. I hope it's all of them because Soulframe's story quests are extremely well done, and it would be fun to play them all again with different loadouts. Steve also mentioned some Koga changes, but several of those have already dropped through hotfixes. The most significant change was an increase to the Agari combat range. This means you've got more area to fight in before the game assumes you're forfeiting the battle. The extra range is much appreciated, but I am still finding that some bosses attempt to kite outside of their combat area, so I hope additional adjustments to Agari AI are coming with P13. Something is going to change with player physics models, but we have no context for what this applies to. We know the team has been working on mantling and swimming animations, so my guess is that the physics changes have something to do with those. It's possible that mantling could arrive with this update, although we don't know for sure. We'll also be getting changes to the combat camera, which has me simultaneously very excited and very nervous. Camera locks were just removed from packed animations, and I absolutely love this change. Packed abilities feel so much better all around. I hope we're not going back to something closer to the old camera locks. On the other hand, many players, myself included, have been asking for at least the option to lock the envoy to the camera's direction during combat. Currently, Soulframe has a mix of soft lock targeting that relies on where your character is facing, and reticle aim based on where your camera is facing. The way the game jumps between these makes combat feel a bit clunky and disoriented at times, so if changes to the combat camera mean some kind of solution for this, that would be a huge win for Soulframe. We'll almost certainly still have some kind of soft lock targeting system, but I would love to have a setting somewhere that lets me always use my reticle as the basis for that soft lock, not the direction my character is facing, or just make my character always face my reticle during combat. If this is the change that's coming, I will be so happy! We're also getting some type of change to how ancestors rank up, although again we have no context or additional information for what this means. We do know Orlick is going to have a larger role in the future, and will serve as some kind of guide to show new envoys what there is to do in Soulframe, but we don't know if this is related to the new ancestor rank up changes or if Orlick's role will be coming in P13. The devs did mention with the Founders update that Tuvolcane would have to be at a certain rank for Founders to be able to craft the giftable fragment for the Paragon Greatsword, so this could be related to that somehow, but we just don't know yet. The biggest change coming in Preludes 13 is of course the Virtue rework. Right now, virtues are essentially character stats. Every spent virtue point gives you more life, weapon damage scales based on the virtue that weapon is attuned to, and the strength, duration, and range of pact arcanics scale with your courage, spirit, and grace respectively. That last part has been a bit of a challenge balance-wise. The strength, duration, and range model is pretty clearly inherited from Warframe, and at first I really liked the idea, but Soulframe's combat pacing is so different from Warframe that it just doesn't make as much sense in practice as it does in theory. Combat tends to happen in a series of shorter, close-range engagements, even when you're playing with ranged weapons, so extended range and duration just isn't that useful unless you nerf base range and duration to a point where arcanics feel bad for new players, which we also don't want. So, Soulframe needs a new virtue system, and we're about to get it. What we know so far is that virtues will no longer have points to allocate. Instead, we'll have an item in our loadout that determines our virtue focus. Steve called this item a meditation prism. This will be a bit more nuanced than just choosing one of the 3 virtues, since you'll also be able to choose a mix between 2 of them or the midpoint between all 3, giving us a total of 7 options. What we don't know is exactly how that choice will affect the many things that currently scale with virtue points. At the moment, our Envoy rank determines how many virtue points we have to spend, and spending those points gives us more life. Steve did mention previously that our Envoy's strength would somehow carry over into this new system, but without knowing how the new virtue system will affect life, arcanics, and weapon damage, there's no way to predict how Envoy rank might come into play. We do know there will be some changes to Pact Arcanics. Steve said that
abilities are going to be reattuned so that virtues matter.
this could mean many things. Are we getting better scaling and sticking with the strength, duration, and range system? Or will our abilities actually have an attuned virtue that they scale with? This second option is most interesting to me. Imagine running a full Grace Garen Rude so you can get the best damage on your Stampede, or a full Spirit Tethrin to get a stronger damage buff from Call of the Ancients. This really would drastically increase build variety and make virtue choices feel very significant in actual gameplay, so I'm hoping this is where they're going with it. I'm also very curious how weapon damage will work with these new virtues. I'd love to see a new system that doesn't require quite so much reverse engineering to figure out. Unfortunately, my guess is that we will still have hidden points of some sort which will be automatically allocated through our loadout item, and then our weapon damage will scale based on those hidden values. I really hope I'm wrong about this, because the only thing that would be worse than having to test things without target dummies in our current system would be having to test things without target dummies or knowing what my stat values are. Subscribe to see if I crash out during P13. Steve also said something I almost missed that will be a huge change for Soulframe.
There's going to be 2-minute armor.
Wait, what?
There's going to be 2-minute armor.
Steve alluded to armor changes during his personal Twitch stream back in December, but this is our first hint at what those changes will be. Will the defense rating of each armor piece scale with its attuned virtue? Will we only be able to equip armor pieces that fit with our attunement focus? Will we be able to change the attunements of armor pieces? And speaking of changing attunements, are we going to get new joinery blessings that match the mixed virtue options? I hope that we do, but I also hope that DE changes the split scaling to work better than it does currently on the Paragon Greatsword. The Paragon has a much higher damage output if you bless it to scale with a single virtue instead of the 3 virtue split scaling it has by default. Weapon damage is very important in Soulframe combat, so without some kind of fix for split virtue scaling, the new virtue system could start out with its own new balance issues. Hopefully this is something DE has already thought about, and we'll have an entirely new system for weapon damage scaling in Preludes 13. 2 things we have not heard are coming in P13 are mounts and changes to combat arts. Both of these are still in the works, and they are confirmed to be coming to Soulframe eventually, but not in Preludes 13. Mounts are confirmed for sometime this year, but we have no info on the timing of the combat arts rework. So, how can you prepare for all these changes? Here are 3 things I'm doing to get ready. First, I'm going to get every available armor piece. I want to make sure I will have good armor for whatever loadout I want to use when the update gets here, and without knowing which pieces I might need for what, I'm just going to get all of them. Next, I'm hoarding joinery. I will not be using blessed joinery on any weapon until after the update, and I will be saving as much blessed joinery as I can. I won't be using arcs to buy any because there are better uses for arcs, but I also won't be using standing to buy any yet either, since I'm not sure which joinery I will want after the update. Instead, I'm going to save my standing and have it ready to buy things when the update drops. And finally, I will not switch factions again until we get the update. Faction swapping still has a 1-week cooldown, which I find more and more unpleasant as we get more items locked behind specific faction shops. I hope this cooldown gets removed eventually, but for now I'm going to make sure that I'm able to switch factions when P13 gets here. That way, if there's a specific item I really want from a certain shop, I'll be able to swap immediately and start working towards it. High-level Tier 3 faction tails are a great way to get standing, armor fragments, and blessed joinery, so that's what I'll be doing between now and January 30th. My next video will be a dev stream recap, and if P13 does drop the same day, I'll live stream my first impressions of the update, so make sure your notifications are on if you don't want to miss that. Which of these changes are you most excited about? Let me know in the comments. And until next time, happy hunting!